It's technically 12:59, but I think it's probably close enough for us to call the meeting to order. And this is the Monroe County Election Board meeting for April 1st, 2021. Present are Carolyn Vanderweel, current chair and Democratic member of the board, Hal Turner, the Republican member of the board, and Tree Martin, Nicole Brown, our clerk, called in sick today or went home sick today and submitted a proxy to Tree or to us for Tree to sit in her place. So we have a full quorum. As Hal mentioned, we have changed the agenda a little bit to add a couple of things and to postpone a couple of things, one of which I'll get to later, but we have postponed the League of Women Voters presentation till next month. We're also going to try to bring in the ICRC, which has been doing a statewide redistricting fact gathering session over the last couple of months, and they'll be presenting a report to the state legislature, and I have asked them, although it's not yet confirmed, to come and give us a presentation as well, not with necessarily their full board, but a couple of their members, to let us know what they found out. So that is going to be postponed until the May meeting, and I'll talk about the other thing that we're going to postpone when we get to it. Let's start with the approval of the February 4th, 2021 minutes. I have not seen any objections or corrections. Tree, do you know whether Nicole had any issues?
She did not.
All right, in that case, I will request a motion to approve the minutes of the February 4th, 2021 meeting.
I'll second that.
Oh.
All right. The question has been called and seconded. If there's no further discussion, Karen, could you read the roll?
The roll?
The roll. We have to vote. You have to call our names so that we can vote.
Oh, I haven't done that before. All right. Carolyn, your vote? Hal?
Yes.
Tree?
Yes.
Approved. And again, as always, many thanks to Sherry Morris, who does such a wonderful job of keeping things in order and getting the minutes to us in a timely fashion. All right, moving on to old business. We'll start with delinquent CFA 4 issues. The final outstanding CFA 4 that we're dealing with from the October 16th deadline was for Judge Houghton, who submitted her report, I believe it was on November 2nd. I have spoken with her. I also spoke with her treasurer, who prepared the report to make sure that, you know, we didn't have, somebody wasn't in the hospital with COVID or other mitigating circumstances, and basically there were none. This is a third offense. And so I am proposing that we follow our policy and have a fine. 18 days times 50 is $900. The policy is that on the first and second offenses, you get a censure. On the third offense, we are assessed 25% of the delinquent payment, which in this case comes to $225. And so that is the fine that I am recommending that we assess on this issue.
Move we assess.
Is there a second?
Tree?
Hold on. Yes, I second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? I will say that she has submitted a final with her annual report, and she's not planning to run again. So hopefully this is the last time we'll have to deal with that. Again, if there is no further discussion, Karen, if you would call the roll.
Hal, what's your vote?
I vote yes.
Tree?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes. One suggestion I'm going to make now, we do not have to send them notice. There's actually two suggestions I would make. One is that we should get the party chairs involved in reminding people that their forms are due. Maybe if they don't believe us, they'll believe their party chairs. So that might be something to discuss with our party chairs individually, Hal. But that would be a good idea. The other thing is to add the treasurers for the judge candidates, because judges have odd rules and cannot handle money. And some of them interpret that as to like, I don't have to pay attention to this. That maybe if we add the treasurers to that notice link for them, maybe that will help deal with it. I really believe that she's the only judge we've had significant problems with, but there's always the future. So maybe we can add those emails to our list of people that we notify when CFA 4s are due. Again, we do that as a courtesy. It's not required by the election board or the election division for us to do that. And unfortunately, sometimes even when we notify people that their paperwork is due, they don't believe us or it doesn't get done. But the idea is to try to get as many people to get it in on time as possible. These are legal forms and they're very valuable to some people. And it's one of the requirements of running for office is to get that right.
Yep. So are you're wanting me to add the treasurers, or you're wanting to talk to the political chairs and get them more involved?
Hal and I will talk to our chairs and work on that aspect of it. But if you can add the treasurer emails to your list of people you notify, I think it just would be perhaps beneficial.
Okay.
Unless you have an objection.
You know, I'm looking at Judge Houghton's file here, and she was delinquent in 2014, 2016, 2020. It just
there is no excuse for being late.
Yeah.
3 times, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
And we've done our best to try to help people not have to suffer major consequences. I mean, we could fine her the full $900, but again, I don't see a reason to violate our policy in this case. I don't think it's an egregious issue. But and you know, we had a similar situation with another person who actually ended up paying the full $1,000 maximum fine because they were that late, over 3 months, in fact. And we do our best to try to help people get those things done properly. But and we're there, both the party chairs, Hal and myself. You have been willing to take calls to answer questions. This was a situation where actually pretty much nothing was done. She didn't have an opponent in either the primary or the general election. I don't believe they took in any money, or maybe there was a little bit in, a little bit out, but it was nothing significant. It should have been a 5-minute form to fill out. It just got missed.
The fact that they took in money or didn't take in money is kind of not an issue in my mind. They signed an agreement under Indiana state law to provide certain levels of information. The election supervisor, Karen, went out of her way when I was a candidate to make sure that I got notifications that, hey, this form is due, get it in. And
I've seen Karen sit down for for
wasn't alone.
Yeah, I've seen Karen sit down for an hour with candidates, helping them to deal with the paperwork, which again, it's not that complicated. There are good instructions on how to fill them out, but we're there to help as much as we can, but it's still the job of the candidate to make sure that their paperwork is filed, even if they're not the ones filling it out.
It is their responsibility.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I guess it just feels a little bit like, since we do so much to help them when we don't have to, then when they are delinquent, we help them even more. Yeah. But I can do that. It's not that big of a deal, but it's the principle of the whole thing probably. But I did want to ask too, in response to that, that money that does come in, it looks like we could have it set up as a special fund through the auditor. I don't think we have that. And then that money is to be used for election, certain things.
Correct.
I don't really know where that money does go. It never comes to us. It doesn't come through this office. We don't handle any money.
Yeah, it has to be paid through the clerk's office.
But if we really should have a fund that if we're doing all this work, that we get the benefit of having this for the election purposes.
It's supposed to go into our budget.
I don't really know.
It does not go back to the general fund.
Sheree, do you know where it goes?
We've only really had one person pay. Well, two, but one of them was minuscule. One was large. And everybody goes, yes, I know who you're talking about. That one did revert over into our election budget. I can contact the auditor and make sure though that if this next fine is paid, that it will come over to us.
Okay.
All right. I mean, it's so seldom that we fine people.
That's true.
Which speaks, yes, we do work hard, but it speaks highly of our community too, that they do their part also.
Right. We work hard for them to not get fined. Yes. I don't want people to get fined.
Me either. And if you're big enough to run for an office and you're big enough to get your paperwork in, and this constant hounding that we do and bending over backwards is hard on me.
Well, I think we've done everything but kidnap people to the Board of Elections and hold them there until they fill out the form. Short of that, we've done everything we possibly can. We do phone calls, we do sometimes letters, we do everything possible. And if they want to write us checks, fine.
Exactly. All right, let's move on to the electioneering issue. Hal,
okay.
Follow up on that.
Did we do the Brian Maloney?
I need to get you a letter, and I've just sort of spaced that until I read the minutes. So
gotcha.
I'll get you that next week.
Okay. We're returning to an incident that happened during early voting this year, where someone came in wearing electioneering information, and that is a violation of state law. The person felt that it was not a violation of state law because they had seen a state Supreme Court ruling for another state that obviated that, that made it not an illegal act. Unfortunately, the Indiana law is written much better than the other state's law was, and our prohibition from wearing electioneering information has been held up in the courts. It is considered legal to ban that within the chute, which is a 50-foot radius around and within the voting area. So in order to gain information on this incident, I reached out through the election supervisor to both the Republican and Democrat parties, and I got a list of everyone who participated in early voting work. And I sent an email to every one of those people asking for any information they had on this incident. 15 of those were returned as improper email addresses. I don't understand why, since this was supposed to be an active list, but, and I used the exact lists from the parties, not a transcribed copy of that list. So if they were invalid, they have been invalid for a while probably. Or anyway, one person came forward and said they witnessed the incident, but didn't have any information. One person came forward and said, yes, I participated in the incident, but I don't have the name of the person who committed the infraction. And so based on that, and the fact that nobody else came back with any information whatsoever, I don't feel we can pursue this individual incident any further. What I would recommend, and what I have already recommended in writing to the other members of the election board, is that we create a form which will capture all the necessary information. Now, because we're talking about a potential Class A misdemeanor, this form is going to need to be vetted by the lawyers to make sure that it captures all the necessary information for prosecution, if that should be the choice of the board at some point in the future. So I'm proposing that we draft this and we have it vetted and available at the next meeting for the board to approve as part of our legal process from this point onward, so that in the future, there will be a zero tolerance of any electioneering within the chute.
So this is actually the other thing that I want to postpone. And the reason for that is there's actually a bill before the state legislature right now, HB 1485, which actually deals with changing some of the rules and deals with breach of peace and election nearing issues. And so I think it's passed the Senate, is not gone to the House yet, or it's at the House now to deal with. So I think until the legislature ends and we know the fate of this particular bill and what it changes, that we should hold off on developing the policy. But I agree that that's something that we should have both for this particular type of offense, but maybe also for other breach of the peace issues and so forth. So that the people that work at our precinct polling locations and at Election Central have this form, know exactly what they need to do in order to document what's going on and make it easy for them. So I think we'll take this up again perhaps in May, once we find out what the fate of this particular bill is.
Okay. Very good.
All right, moving on to new business upgrades for the Nat U Hill room, just for the information. I think this is information that actually is going to be welcomed by some people. They are upgrading the Nat U Hill room so that it will both be able to do in-person meetings. And again, we're not sure when we're going to go back to in-person meetings. The governor has said things go back to normal April 6th, but we don't know precisely exactly what that entails. And so we'll find out once we get all that information. I actually spoke to one of the county attorneys earlier today, and they don't know yet either, but they'll let us know when they do. So we may be back in in-person meetings. We may not be, starting in May. We will find that out. But for the moment, the upgrade will both include in-person meetings and Zoom ability, so that people who cannot attend in person, the Nat U Hill room is accessible, quote unquote. It can be difficult for people with significant disabilities, both to find parking that's close. They have to walk up at least some stairs to get to the courthouse from the north side and go up the elevator. So I think that this will both help people who have trouble making it into that room, and also people who want to attend. Again, while I was on this call earlier, the amount of public participation through Zoom meetings has actually increased public participation at many meetings. So I think this gives us an advantage of being able to have the best of both worlds. I still like meeting in person, and there are certain advantages to that, but for people who can't make it, they'll have an in real time ability to interact with the meetings, as opposed to having to go, watch the CATS video later and then make their comment at that point. So that's what the county has told us they're going to do, and I think that's a great idea. Don't know that that's going to happen for other county meetings, but at least for ours, we'll have that function. Comments?
I think it's a great thing to be able to do hybrid meetings. It's going to make it much more accessible to more citizens. I think it's a great idea.
Anyone else? I think it is what it is, but I will be able to inform people when we go back in in-person meetings, and we will still probably continue to be sending out links that allow people to attend by Zoom. And I'm not sure how they're going to do it yet, but we will find out when we get there. 5, as most people obviously know, it's been in most of the media and so forth. We do have a new Secretary of State. I don't know whether she's interacted with any of you yet, Karen, or any of the clerk's offices. She's, I think you're muted.
I have not had any contact with the state in regards to the Secretary of State, other than we know we have a new one.
Same here.
Interestingly enough, she has done some cybersecurity work through the legislature, which should make Hal happy. She does not have an extensive election background, but maybe that brings us some new thoughts and blood. And she did say that she was dedicated to helping every Hoosier vote. So that's a start. And we'll let people know more when we get to that point. But we welcome her. Legislative updates from the State House. Nicole's not here, so I do have a list, and I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm going to send the summaries to Sherry, and we can post them. But I've got 5 pages worth of stuff. But there are some bills that are proceeding, some bills that have been consolidated, some bills that have passed both the House and the Senate, and some that have not. Most of them deal with basic election matters. There is a bill that is restricting the ability of the governor and the Secretary of State's office and the Election Commission to make decisions, and moving that to the legislature. And again, there's some details on that. And so as I said, we'll get this posted, but I don't want to read the whole thing. It would take me 20, 30 minutes to read it.
Because the bills have changed, they sometimes move to different houses, they sometimes get voted down. In the past, we haven't really done anything more than simply show the numbers of the bills so individuals could go to the
and I can put that
website, as opposed to, you know, doing an update, because the update minutes will not even really go out until the board approves them next month. So the same bills that are in the minutes now that are online are the same bills that are being tracked now in the legislature.
Some of them have been consolidated a bit, but
yes, of course, but that's all available online. So
exactly, and through the Indiana government website, so you can check on the status of all those bills, where they're going, and what stage they are. And then, of course, the legislature winds up the end of this month, and so once we know what changes are going to be made, we'll be able to figure out. But there may be some changes in our ability to do things. There may be changes in the way the state election board is able to do things, and we won't know that until the legislature finishes.
So just as an update, it would be the Indiana General Assembly website, which is iga.in.gov, and look under the legislation tab, and all of the bill summaries are available for both the House and the Senate.
Correct. Any other comments or knowledge? And I guess the great bear in the House is actually SB 1. On the federal side of things, that bill has passed the House. It's now in front of the Senate, and we'll find out that may change everybody's ability to do things. And we don't know how long the legal ramifications of that bill are going to be, but I'm certain there's going to be a lot of legal challenges if that bill passes. So it may be years yet before all those things take into effect, but that bill might significantly change the way legislatures are able to deal with things. So that's probably the big elephant in the room, or elephant and donkey, I guess. And I haven't read the whole bill yet, but I've read some of it. There's a lot of stuff in that bill that will change a lot of things if it passes in the form that it's in now. Okay, any other comments on that? And we had a request from Ralph Shaw, who has joined us here, to talk about issues with voter registration of the DMV. And so I'm going to ask our, actually it looks like, Ralph, I think you can just unmute and talk.
Yes, I can.
So okay. Go ahead.
I should talk. Okay. Hi, Karen. I have heard from various people that there have been folks who've registered through the Department of Motor Vehicles, or at least thought that they had registered, and then they came to vote and discovered that they were not registered. And I'm just wondering if those are things that others of you have heard, if there's anything that can be done from this end to make sure that registrations are coming through so that people, once they think they're registered, are in fact registered.
So this is a kind of perennial bugaboo that we certainly have come across in the past. In fact, we had an incident a couple of years ago where a husband and wife had both gone to the DMV, upgraded their licenses, and registered to vote at the same time. And one of those went through and the other did not. And we have no idea why. The biggest thing that can be done is, one, do it in a timely fashion, and then check your registration to make sure it happened. It should go through fairly quickly within, I would guess, a couple of weeks. Is that correct, Karen?
Yes. Yeah, generally 10 days we'll do it. But of course, when we're swamped, you know, if it's a big election, and that, we can't guarantee that. But also they do get some notice from the BMV. And if they keep that and they bring it to us and we don't have it, we can get them registered that day because they can prove that they've done it. So that's a really good backup for them. But we can do searches, but when we have those problems, their name just isn't in the system from the BMV. We just never got it. It
seems to be an issue with the BMV getting it into the portal as opposed to something that happens at our end.
Right.
We get that notice. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. But I think the biggest thing you can do then is keep the receipt, number one, and number two is check. Give yourself 2 weeks and then go online and check your registration to see whether it's been upgraded.
And when you say check, you mean check with the state's website?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
You also have to remember too that there's a deadline to register. 30 days before the election, we stop registering people. So if someone goes to the BMV during that time, it puts it in a holding pattern until registration opens up again. So you may think that you're registered, but you're not. It's in a pending, like you're on the tarmac waiting for your plane to take off. So that's an issue too.
Because of you missed the deadline.
You missed the deadline. So 30 days before is the deadline. of every election.
Yeah, we don't
Is that
have
correct, Karen?
Yes, that is correct.
We don't have day of registration in Indiana. No. I suspect we won't for a long time. So making sure that A, you get registered before the deadline, and B, that you check that it happened correctly, and that you keep, if you register through the portal, you might go ahead and do a screenshot that you did it, that sort of thing, so that you can prove that it actually happened. Because obviously problems happen. But the issue seems to be there with the DMV, and there's been complaints for years about that happening. It's not just recent.
So the biggest service we could do as an election board is to encourage people to use the online ability to check their registration before they go in to vote, to make sure before the deadline cutoff time to register happens, that they themselves go on and verify that, yes, I am registered. Yeah.
The bill that wanted us to do same day registration died. So it's not even an issue this time.
No.
Okay, that's a good suggestion, Hal, because when we're putting out, this is speaking for the league's efforts to encourage people to register, but we could also say, be sure to check your registration to make sure that you're registered as well.
Yeah, and I mean, we've seen occasionally, for some reason, you voted for 20 years at every primary and every general election, and suddenly something happens and you find you're not registered. So it's always a good idea before the registration deadline to just go online and double check that everything is good. There's also a lot of information on that website about who's running, who's on your ballot, how to get to whatever precinct you vote at, all of that stuff is there. And so it's a very valuable website for multiple reasons. But the same thing is true if you register in person through a voter drive, for example. You really want to go and check and make sure that your paper didn't get lost or something like that. So it's always a good idea after you've registered to double check. And then even if you've been registered for years, to check prior to the election and the registration date, cutoff date, to make sure that everything is copacetic.
That's a good point. And some of us have been voting for so long that if you had told me 15 years ago to check my registration, I would think, why would I want to overwork the folks at Election Central? But now I think it's just a computer, so who cares?
Let me just say too, though, that if you've lived in your same residence for years, or it doesn't even have to be years, but since you've been registered, you haven't moved, and for some reason you got canceled, you can still get reinstated if you have not moved. So if we made a mistake, we put you, even if you cancel, can you believe that? Even if you canceled, say, I don't want to be there, but you haven't moved, you're still in that place, we can reinstate you. I think that's amazing.
Yeah. And again, our voter registration office, those guys work so hard and they are always there ready to help you. So if you've got a question, something happens, you're not registered, whatever, they can help figure out what went wrong and deal with it if it's possible to deal with, which isn't always, but.
Thank you. I appreciate this. It all goes into some store of knowledge that we hope will be called upon at the right time when somebody asks a question in a public meeting.
Okay, at this moment, I'm going to open things up to public comment. If there's anybody who is...
I do have one other thing, wherever you want it to fit in.
Now is a good time. Okay,
thank you. So we have a situation in Salt Creek Township. We had Guy Cunningham, who was on the board. Apparently he resigned, but I don't actually have that paperwork, never got it. Then he was replaced by Joe Hickman, and I got a little bit of his paperwork. I got the CAN 12, which is the economic interest, that one. And he apparently has signed as a school board, as a board member, but I don't have the final paperwork on either one. I don't have an oath of office, and I have contacted Jennifer. She is on the Salt Creek board, but I can't, she was contacted as the Democratic Party chair. I don't know if it's all legit. Is one really out? Is one really in? If I don't have the paperwork, how much, you know, who has to deal with this? Do we just let Salt Creek deal with their own stuff? So the trustee is Don Hall.
I can work with Jennifer and Don to see if we can figure out what's going on and make sure you need a can 1. You said you already have a can 12?
Just the 12, yeah.
And we need a registration or a resignation from the person who was elected.
Yeah, Guy Cunningham.
Notification that he officially is resigned.
Mm-hmm.
So paperwork for resignation. And then Mr. Hickson needs to know that he needs to go to the clerk's office, correct? Is that correct, Tree? To take the oath of office?
He can come to us and we'll take care of him.
Okay.
Okay. A lot of times the trustee does it also. Don Hall can do it.
Okay.
But
so,
Karen, you want a copy of his oath of office, correct?
It needs to be on file with the clerk's office, correct?
Yeah. We say the clerk's office, but I get it. But right. Yeah. But if she gets it, I'll get it.
That's right.
I will talk with Jennifer later today and see if we can get the ball rolling on that.
Thank you. Those are easy things to miss, and I don't even know if that's always my responsibility or this office responsibility to make sure all these ducks are in the right order. You're trusting that the trustees are doing it, but it did come up and we're like, something's not right here. All
right. If you have contact information for Don Hall, can you send that to me sometime today?
Sure.
I think I can get hold of Jennifer. Any other issues? Did we get our merge and unmerge issues dealt with?
Okay.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes. Got them both done. Yes. Thank you.
All right.
Just want to separately, if we're looking for additional topics, I just want to mention if the election board does in the May meeting decide to pursue the preparation and vet a document for any breach of peace or electioneering, any sorts of activities, that it would then be the responsibility of election workers to communicate with the individual who is creating the situation. It would be really helpful for that document to include a verbatim to read to the individual if we are to inform them, because leaving it up to a poll worker or an early voting worker to say the right things is, I think, inappropriate. And it is through that verbatim that perhaps we could then convince the individual who is causing the situation to change their mind and understand it's a serious issue through the verbatim, so that it is communicated the way the attorneys would like it done. So I would just want to remind the board of that.
Good idea. And we'll also talk with our county attorney liaison to make sure we get that information correct.
Yes.
But yeah, anything that makes it more uniform, so that this person at this precinct didn't get told this and that person at that precinct got told something.
I would like to think I would say the right thing, but perhaps not. And if it is stated more officially, then perhaps that alone would communicate the seriousness of the issue and how we're going to pursue it.
Yep. We will make note of that.
Thank you.
Is there any further public comment?
Just one comment that I don't believe have received any census information yet. Census information's been delayed this year, and census information is the key starting point that the election board will use in determining whether it's necessary to change any of the precincts, correct?
The last I heard was end of April sometime, and I don't know that they're going to make that deadline either. And then I believe that the Secretary of State's office has notified you, Karen, that we're talking about fall before they give us what we need to do what we need to do.
You're on mute, Karen.
I'm always moving papers around here, so I'm trying to keep it quiet there and then forget. So what was the question? Yes, September.
And redistricting.
Good laughing at me. So September should be when we get it. And they say, hopefully, it's not even a sure thing in September. So it could be quite a crisis here of timing and getting everything done. I think I've mentioned before, maybe in the board meeting, but it's always good to restate that I think two things that I would like to see done is getting Richland 9 consolidated to someplace else, whether it's Van Buren or wherever. And if we can...
a precinct with only 9 voters in it?
12, come on.
We're up to 12 now?
Yeah. And then the MCCSC school board splits, if we can get rid of them. I don't know that there's a reason that we have them anymore. And if we could get rid of them, since we don't use them, everyone in MCCSC district votes for all the school board members. So there is no need for a split there. Those are two things that I would like to do. And of course, there's a few things that we want to get rid of, some weirdness that we have in there that always happens with when they change boundaries and things. But those two are kind of, would be nice to clear up. Not hugely important, but would be nice.
And there may be some issues with annexation coming up in city precincts, but we won't know that until it happens. So we'll deal with those as they come up. If there's no further comment, I'll entertain a motion for us to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you very much. Our next meeting will be May 6th. 2021. We do not yet know whether it will be in person or in Zoom, but we will notify everybody once we are notified by the health department as to what we're doing.